Okay, it's 2 o'clock. I propose that we start. So welcome everyone to the October seminar. So today we are very happy to have Mathilde Maurel presenting a paper on internet use and understanding democracy in Africa. She's very happy to take questions along the way or at the end, so there will be enough time for discussion. So please, I would like to ask everybody to please mute your microphone so that we can hear better. And then if you want to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and just go and ask the question. Mathilde, the floor is yours. So you have 1 hour, including discussion. So
yes, thank you very much, Yola, and thank you, Klaus. I'm very pleased to be here with you today and to be given the opportunity of presenting this paper on this internet use and on the understanding democracy in Africa, a paper which is co-authored with Thomas Pernet. And so it's about how democracy is understood in Africa, recently in Africa, and how it is impacted by the widespread use of the internet. So we have, from one hand, the understanding of democracy, and I think this understanding of democracy actually remains underexplored in academic literature. And this is paradoxical because many important political outcomes, such as participation, voting, protests, all are based on how people do understand democracy. So from the other hand, the access to reliable information, which is also essential for the proper functioning and maybe understanding of democracy. Why? Simply because it helps citizens make informed choices, support good candidates, encourages responsible decision-making in all aspects of life. In the past, most information came from traditional media like newspaper, radio, and TV. But our study is not about this all types of media. We are looking at new media, which is becoming more and more important for how people get information, and especially in Africa. But those new media have some problems too. They often use sensational headlines. They do not always give proof. Spread quickly and widely. They use emotions to catch attention, and sometimes they rely on bots or algorithms. So those new media are growing fast, and because of this very impressive rise in their use and their specific features, some are positive, some are negative. Many researchers are studying those special features. So our contribution in this paper is to propose a variable that will measure quantitatively individual level understanding of democracy. And we will do that in a set of African countries to assess the impact of the internet of this understanding. We also will investigate other perception-related outcomes, such as the fairness of elections, the freedom of expression, and corruption. But our main contribution is this understanding democracy variable. So what is our definition of, I would say, true definition of democracy? It's standard. It's free and fair elections, freedom of expressing opinions. It is a system of government in which power is held by elected representatives who are freely voted for by the people and held directly by the people themselves.
Mathilde, we do not see any change in PowerPoint. Is this intentionally?
It's normal because this was the motivation of the paper. So
okay, fine. No, sorry. So I just wanted to make clear. Okay.
Yeah. So the presentation. Thank you for this clarification, Klaus. The presentation is going to be organized into six parts. I will first summarize the existing literature, and I will base this review on a meta-analysis which was published in 2023 in Nature Human Behavior. This meta-analysis synthesized findings from a set of a quite wide range of and representative set of studies, 419. I will try to position our work within this review and try to also highlight our empirical contributions as well as the specific research gaps that we try to address in our study. Then I will describe the empirical framework we are going to use to address the specific research question, that is the econometric specification and also identification strategy, that is our methodological choices. Data and construction of the variable, and more specifically the construction of principal variable of interest, understanding democracy variable. So I would like to focus on the data sets that we will employ, the sources, and the process itself of constructing these variables that will try to capture the concept of understanding democracy measured at the individual level. The results will be presented, the main findings from our study, the key empirical patterns and statistical evidence. And finally, I would like to discuss the implications of our results, the most important being the connection between understanding democracy, which turns out to be worsened by the access to the access to information through the internet, and also the important, as an implication, the important connection between this understanding democracy, internet-induced understanding democracy, and preferring democracy or being satisfied with it. So let me start with a very short review of the literature, and I would like to rely on this paper published in the Nature Human Behavior by Lawrence Friends and co-authors. I picked up in this review, meta-analysis, I would say, I picked up three elements, three graphical sum-ups that allow me to position our study and our contributions. So you have first this triangle with three sides. The first side, AC, where all papers from this part of the literature are dealing with the internet providing both information but also misinformation. Citizens are therefore exposed to various institutional biases, and this occurs often in a selective way. So our paper, I think, is part of this research strand, which covers about 15% of all studies considered in this review, 40 out of a total of 419. The second side of the triangle, CB, tells us that exposure to this misinformation can shape democracy in multiple ways, and there are several outcomes that are investigated, such as trust in political institutions, participation in protests, perceptions of corruption. So you have a range of different political outcomes, and roughly 10% of all studies contribute to this research area. And our study also provides a small contribution to this research strand. But most studies, about 75%, are going to analyze the direct effect of the internet on political behaviors and attitudes. Then you see in the middle of the map, in the middle of the slide, you see two maps. And on those two maps, we can observe clear contrasting patterns between new democracies and developing countries and older democracies, developed countries. So you see green cycle, mostly in the green in the new democracies and the developing world, while orange cycles are more present in the old world. So what those orange cycles represent highlight works that demonstrate the negative effects of the new media, while the green cycle are about research supporting positive mechanisms. The negative effects, again, orange cycles, manifest through the spread of hate, polarization, populism, the formation of insular networks, and increased misinformation. The positive effects, studies in green, include building trust, expanding knowledge, enabling participation, safeguarding the freedom of expression. So we observe positive effects in new established democracies, while negative effects are most observed in the EU and the US. So a key insight we draw from this systematic review will be the importance of distinguishing the age of democracies when we try to assess the impact of the internet and the new media. In older established democracies such as Europe and the US, the effects tend to be negative. For example, a loss of trust in government can undermine democracy and stability. At the opposite, in newer or authoritarian democracies, the same loss of trust may actually affect progress toward a more open and liberal society. So we follow we inspired by those insights. We focus our analysis on African countries, but we compare. We are going to distinguish 13 non-democratic states and 18 democratic countries according to the Polity 5 classification. And finally, on the right, the graph, I hope you see it well, a graph that represents the number of studies by method type, by methodologies. And this graph highlights that most studies from this literature are based upon correlation. They are correlational. Therefore, they cannot reliably establish causality, while only a small fraction of all studies are based upon causal links and have a clear identification strategy. So for that purpose, those few studies use the usual methodologies like instrumental variable design that introduce exogenous variation in the exposure to the new media, and our study, as you will see, belongs to this type of approach. Matching techniques to balance comparison groups, panel data models to account for unobserved variables, confounders, or large-scale social media experiments.
Mathilde,
Yes.
a short question. An obvious question is democracy, yes or no, is not necessarily discrete. Yes, I mean there's an intensity also with autocratic regimes. How is this literature dealing with the issue? I guess lot of this literature is looking at intensity of, or is this just
yes, starting from the very construction of the democracy variable, because in Polity 5 the variable democracy takes values from -10 to 10, and so you have all nuances all nuances are possible, from autocracies to pure democracies and passing through anocracies. So you have this is not necessarily disparate choices. but in our approach, because it's not the focus of our study, we consider democracies as countries whose score is above the critical value of 6, and doing that, we follow the usual rule. But you are right; it's not. And you, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I understand. That's good point. That's already half answers my question. But even if, but if you rank countries according to the intensity of democracy or not democracy, you need to kind of reference. See, democracy can mean something very different things in Africa than in Europe. Yes.
Absolutely. So this is why first we focus on an African sample of a sample of African countries. We do not merge together things that are not really comparable. And then we are going to analyze the exact meaning for individual. We use a survey, the Afrobarometer survey. You may be familiar with it. And in the module we use, people are asked what democracy means for you. So, and we are going to analyze the exact meaning for and to quantify the understanding democracy for African citizens.
Okay, thank you.
So, but I will explain you how we proceed, and I think it's exactly where our main contribution is. From this review meta-analysis, we draw 3 conclusions. The first one is that we belong to this literature and we can position ourselves within it. Second, we are looking at countries that are new democracy and developing countries. That is where usually positive beneficial effects are observed. And finally, we are going to follow a methodology, to apply a methodology that will allow us to establish a causality running from the use of internet to the understanding democracy and other political outcomes. So, because our analysis focuses on not only on the relationships between the internet, the access to information, and political outcomes, I would like also to spend some time on this understanding of democracy and to review the scarce literature on it. So the concept of understanding democracy. Understanding of democracy is close, I think, to that of civic literacy or political knowledge. So let's review the few references. The first one is Dimitrova and colleagues in 2014. They measure political knowledge, and for that they use 8 questions about recent political events. This is the way they try to measure the political knowledge, which is important for the democratic life. So recent political events, party positions, press conferences, major national news, as well as domestic and foreign policy developments. So this is not the way we use, but it's one position. Another important contribution is shown in 2014, and his definition is very close to ours. He defines understanding democracy as the ability to distinguish the core characteristics of democracy from those of autocracy. So he uses for that he uses data from the World Value Survey. This survey covers more than 80,000 respondents in 44 countries, and he shows that understanding democracy means prioritizing features like free elections, civil liberties, and it is also assigning the lowest importance to authoritarian threats, features like military takeovers or the application of religious law. So I think our definition is very close to this one. And we found also in the literature a related concept of civic literacy, examined and introduced maybe by Milner in 2002. Civic literacy is assessed through factual and cognitive knowledge, and it is found to be positively associated with higher voter turnout in local elections. So there is indeed a link between those notions and the political very important political outcomes. So our proposal is to measure the democracy understanding, and for that we base our study on an original data set, the Afrobarometer survey. This is, you may know this Afrobarometer, which is a nationally representative survey conducted across sub-Saharan Africa. So it is specifically about African countries. And we use around 2014 one, a round which is dedicated to the assessment of democracy in Africa. So we leverage an open-ended responses to the following question. Question which is asked we end up with a sample of 25,000 in African citizens, African individuals. So it's a quite representative sample, and the question which is asked is, what, if anything, does democracy mean to you? So to assess how well respondents answer that question, of course, we do not read all questions one by one, and we do not analyze it one by one, but we use ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will compare the individual answers to a standard definition of democracy from its training data. And this definition, ChatGPT definition, aligns well with the definitions I just outlined, the standard definition of democracy. This approach can be criticized, of course, because it can be criticized because to a certain extent we do not control it completely. It's done by ChatGPT, but it allows us to capture differences, I think, in democratic literacy between internet users and non-users. And I will come back to this variable and to show you step by step how it is, how things are done. Let's now look at our econometric model and the identification strategy. So if you, again, with respect to the literature, our study belongs to the SC side, that is studies that, and they are scarce again, 40, that is 15% of the whole set of papers. So we look at the effect from digital media, social and online news, to misinformation, selective exposure, but we look at the understanding of democratic understanding. And we also will investigate the impact of the internet on other political outcomes like freedom of expression, freeness and fairness of corruption, and perception of the extent of corruption. So, of course, we control for a number of confounders, factors like age, gender, interest in politics, education, employment status, urban versus rural residents, the use of other media. So we control for many things, and also we are going to distinguish democracies versus non-democratic countries just to see if there are some differences across the two subsamples.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Because so if I understood correctly, this understanding of democracy comes from like an open-ended question. Is there a problem that some people do not fill in the answer? Because I mean, if I have no idea, for example, what democracy is or means, you know, maybe I will not write anything.
Yeah.
And so what do you do with this information? Because in the end, if somebody doesn't fill it in, is informative in some sense.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right, and it's a good question. I think, and indeed there are individuals not being able to answer this question or providing incorrect responses to this question. And this is so sometimes the worst case is when they do not know at all. For us, it's the worst case, and it happens. But it's not the majority of the responses in our case. It's not the majority, but if they don't know, there is an option. I mean, for them to fill in. I don't know. So we can track those individuals. And also, I mean, I suspect that this absence of I mean, this not being able to answer this question is not only in Africa, but it can happen in many other different contexts. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes,
Viola.
thank you so much.
Sorry, can I also ask something? Because you were mentioning that you are using you know, a set of sub-Saharan African countries, but like there are countries that they are really different, so the answer can be different, because if we think a country in the North Africa, I don't know, Tunisia, Egypt, they are much more evolve in some sense, even in infrastructure. If we compare a country like Nigeria or Ethiopia, which I don't know whether you have included or not, they are really left behind. I am studying at the moment Ethiopia, and a large part of the population does not even have access to electricity. So I think the answer, so I don't know whether you have been focusing on more urban area or urban and rural, because the situation could be different within countries. The answer, I'm saying, also between countries, they are really, really different in the position, in the evolving or their position.
Yes, this is of course an excellent question, and it may be the case that most of our results is driven by some countries in the sample, and those countries being probably the MENA countries, or countries which are more urban and more connected to electricity infrastructure, where the internet access to internet is easier, etc. So I completely agree. What we could do, and we haven't, we didn't investigated this aspect yet, but we could run separate regressions for at the country level. So, but we didn't, we haven't done yet this kind of analysis. But of course, in more in backward area, and where the question of democratic institutions is probably not a priority, I would not be surprised that our modeling approach and our question even is not very pertinent. That does not really make sense. So this is what you mean, I guess.
In the fact that you are comparing us, you know, you are having at the end a measure of democracy outcome, and is coming from a really different context, and within...
No, but absolutely. So our it's well, if we in as much we assume that everyone is equal in front of democracy and this kind of principles. Our approach is to aggregate things and to run our regression on everybody as if everybody was equal. But this is not true life, I agree. And we could look more into details by running the same regressions, but at the country level. So to see if it's more, it makes more sense when we specifically separate the countries, MENA countries, for instance.
Yeah, or even at infrastructure level. So you could aggregate country, because there are countries really with a different level of infrastructure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's so now let me give you a few words about our empirical strategy. We look at the impact of internet use on the understanding of democracy, and we are aware of the fact that this correlation is subject to important bias. These relationships is biased. There is first a problem of directionality. Internet might shape democratic attitudes, but it's very likely that individuals with stronger democratic preferences are more likely to seek information online. Then we have the problem of omitted variables that will affect simultaneously both internet use and democratic outcomes, such as so it could be the country specific, as you mentioned, you just mentioned, it could be the variable that are country specific, but also at the individual level, in education, institutional, at macro country level, again, institutional quality, socioeconomic conditions. So we control for all those variables because we have the information in the database, but there are many other unobserved variables that we do not control for. So all this create endogeneity concerns, and they that undermine a simple OLS regression estimation. So this is why we adopt an instrumental variable approach. We instrument internet use by, so here I would like to just spend some time. We instrument internet use by the interaction of the stock, of lightning strikes with a district level 3G coverage. So why? Because lightning strikes, so those lightning data are very familiar in the literature, empirical literature, but they are climatic exogenous events that can disrupt telecommunication infrastructure and internet connectivity randomly. The actual impact of lightning depends on the degree of 3G coverage. So we assume that in districts with, we do not assume, it's in districts with high coverage, strikes are more likely to cause internet disruptions, and in districts with little coverage, the effect is minimal. And indeed, there is a wide heterogeneity in this 3G coverage across African countries. So we combine the randomness of lightning with differences in 3G coverage. These differences in 3G coverage are not randomly distributed, but the source of randomness come from lightning strikes, and we are able to generate exogenous variation in internet exposure across districts. So this is our instrument. And that enables us to isolate the causal effect of internet use on democracy. This makes our identification strategy stronger and more credible than a simple OLS regression. And you will see that indeed, the OLS results are not the same. They do not give the same pictures. So now I would like to describe the data which I employ in the analysis. I will spend, I apologize for that, some time on their description. The first will be the understanding of democracy, and I think it's important to open then the debate and the debate and the discussion. Then the main explanatory variable of interest being internet use and the social media for getting news, because this is what we are interested in. It is our main explanatory variable, and the instruments based on fixed 3G share and lightning. So Afrobarometer,
Small question.
yes.
Why you prefer to multiply to these two variables instead of taking once at a time, for example, trying them separately? And my second question, is it for a specific year?
So it's for my answer to your first question is that indeed we could simply focus on both components separately, that is strikes and strikes, because the 3G coverage is not randomly distributed. We cannot assume that it provides us with an exogenous source of variation in the exposure to internet. So we could indeed try to instrument simply by the lightning strikes. You are right, and I think that our instrument with this interaction term is stronger. Has a more explanatory power. But anyway, you are right. And then your second question was about
The year of the
2014. So this is a good question, because indeed we do not have a panel structure. Our data is cross-sectional.
Thank you.
So because the module which is dedicated to democracy is available only in that year. So we don't have it for other years. Open-ended questions. So the reason why we take this 2014 Afrobarometer survey is this specific and unique module which is dedicated to understanding democracy. We have both open-ended and close-ended questions. That I am not going to present the results which are based upon the close-ended questions, but we did the analysis, and they are available upon request. They can be compared. So I would like to focus on the open-ended question, because I think it's more, it's really interesting to ask directly to the people how they understand, and to try to summarize the overall information that we get from this question. So this is the many publications. There are many publications hosted on the Afrobarometer website. This slide displays a small selection of recent scholarly articles which I picked up through Google Scholar searches. Most are not in the economic literature. They come from political studies. But they attest to the significance and the utility of this Afrobarometer data in African studies and political science research. So we are not wrong when we use this survey, which is indeed very rich and very interesting. So this is my understanding democracy variable, and I really would like to discuss with you and to assess your how you react to it. So we start from question 29B to 29D. So the same question, which is the following: what is anything does democracy mean to you? So this question is asked at the individual level, and each individual can give up to three open-ended answers. So in the table you have concrete examples. In a second step, we code those answers using ChatGPT. The prompt we use is the following: I am trying to label a text from a survey. So on the right of this slide, I'm trying to label a text from a survey. The respondent should answer, what is, if anything, does democracy mean to you? Here is the response. So we extract and we copy paste the text of each individual answer. I want you to tell if the respondent's answer corresponds to the correct definition of democracy. Select yes if yes, otherwise no. And if you cannot tell, select I don't know. So the definition applied by ChatGPT, the definition of democracy and the definition to what he compares, ChatGPT is comparing the actual answers given by the respondents. So this definition is borrowed from its knowledge base, a training base, which is consistent with, we checked, with standard definitions of democracy and the definitions which are reviewed previously. For example, a system of government in which power is vested in the people, typically through elected representatives, and characterized by principles such as political equality, free and fair elections, and the protection of fundamental rights. So this is the standard to which each answer is compared. In the third step, we create a variable that equals 1 if at least half of the respondents' answers are judged correct. So to help you better grasp how we construct our variable of understanding democracy, take a look at the table. So the first row represents the 3 different answers from one particular individual, what a democracy means to him. So he gave only 2 answers out of 3. He had only 2 definitions in mind, 2 ideas. The first was government provides basic necessity to the people. And ChatGPT classifies this as incorrect. It's wrong. The second was freedom to give opinions, and ChatGPT considers that answer as incorrect. So here we consider that this particular individual understands democracy, because out of 2, one of his answers fits the definition, the standard definition of one of the components of democracy. We could, of course, choose different definitions, not different definition of democracy, but we could construct our indicator differently. We could, for instance, take a percentage score instead of a binary variable. We could also apply a higher share, that is more than half of the answer have to be correct for the individual having understood democracy. So I hope this is clear, but if you have any comment or question, because it's really...
I think for me, it's very clear, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking indeed what you said, that there could be alternative definition, because say, okay, I understand the point, for example, say that I give 3 answers, and one is correct, in the sense it corresponds to what democracy is, but the other 2 are completely incorrect. Then I'm still rated as somebody who understands democracy, but,
if you have 2 incorrect answers, you do not understand. 2 out of 3, you do not understand. You are not assigned a value, the value 1 for the democracy variable, because it's less than half.
Okay, and if it is 1 out of 2, instead I understand it.
Okay, but it's arbitrary. I mean, we could. It's not perfect, of course. It's far from perfect, but it has the advantage of being transparent and clear. So and we can then try robustness, different robustness
indeed,
checks.
I think you just probably in robustness try different definitions, right? So like indeed, as you said, like the percentage.
I have also a question.
Yes.
I'm not against using ChatGPT. I think it's all okay. But the question is, which word we need to know which version you are using, and also we have to understand what ChatGPT thinks what democracy is.
Okay, so
ChatGPT is trained with data, yes, and so it will be that, and it's maybe not easily clear. Have you asked ChatGPT what do you think? What
yes,
it is? Okay, okay,
yes. So his definition is very standard.
okay.
It fits the definition that I mentioned before, and which are and they are consistent with the literature about understanding democracy, civic literacy, etc. So it's of course for what version of ChatGPT we use the version which was the last version when the paper was written, that is a year ago. So it's a recent version of ChatGPT. And I think the question you have in mind is what would be the definition of ChatGPT? Would ChatGPT be not? I mean, have a training database not very clean. Is it right?
No, it's changing. It's improving over
It's improving.
time.
Okay.
ChatGPT is improving a lot. So the version today is very different from a few years ago, or even half a year ago. And this also has implications because it's much more sensitive to predefinitions nowadays. And that's so far I understand it, without having too much own experience with using it, but reading what some of the literature says. Also, there's the issue of replication. We know that well, if you ask ChatGPT a few times on the same question, you may get different answers. Yes, and if you replicate too much in the same round, in the same version, answers are known to become weaker over time. Yes, so if you replicate the same question to the same situation 10 times, it will be much worse typically at the end than at the beginning. So you are just asked once, yes?
Yes, we have been trying only once, and of course we could replicate this as many times as would be necessary to test the impact of replication on our results.
Yeah. Okay. The other issue related, thanks. The other related to that is the following. Typically, we want to replicate papers which are published or written, yes. But if somebody else comes and replicates, since we do not know how ChatGPT makes a decision, there is no structural knowledge. It's good in predicting. I mean, it's not. I'm not disqualifying the finding, but we do not understand it. So it's not very sure that if you replicate it, you necessarily get the same answers.
Okay, so we understand what he does by looking at this table. So here it's clear that the first answer was not correct. Government providing basic necessities to the people and freedom to give opinion fits the definition of democracy. Of course, if by replicating, trying again, and running again the ChatGPT algorithm, we were ending up in a different assessment for this individual, understanding or not, this would be problematic. So if to tell, I'm not sure that I hope I addressed your question, but here it's true that we don't know exactly how ChatGPT is working and processing the data, but when I display the conclusion from his processing work, I am completely okay with its conclusion. So
Okay.
I took randomly ChatGPT choices, and it was, so you have 5 random examples in the table, and it makes sense.
Oh, okay. Now, yeah. So I'm just, yeah, my real question was in this context is, let's assume your paper is published and somebody else comes and wants to replicate your study, which we want to see. what is the expectation? What will happen? I mean, you have done nothing wrong. I mean, technically, but people who are replicating it with using your method, using your data, and should come to similar conclusion. Yes.
Yes.
Or if you
So
use
I
something
am
else,
not
then
able
ChatGPT.
to.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed, you are. So the replication of this kind of study is not the same as for standard regression analysis, where you know exactly the algorithm which is behind. You know exactly the algebra which is behind, and you are sure that from given inputs you will end up with some estimated coefficients and precisely estimated. Here, of course, somebody with the same data will use a different ChatGPT version, and he will find. My assumption is that he will find the same significant and negative coefficient, but the exact number figure will be different, maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm looking more at this issue, like because this is all relatively new as an editor, so to speak, or judging articles and looking at referee reports. In principle, it's an issue of, from my point of view, of robustness. Now, because the way how you phrase the question, yes, even if you do nothing wrong, yes, may change the answers of ChatGPT, even if it's doing the same in the same situation. So it's like you have an issue of data construction. So it's not about the regression results. It's about how the data is constructed from the original data. And this is of course true with all other studies where people are not using ChatGPT but their own opinion how to classify data, to use data. And we know that lots of differences in papers come already out of this. The only issue is here we do not really know what the KI is really doing. It's the artificial intelligence. But okay, it's enough. I was just curious to learn about from your experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. The robustness of our results come also from the very same regression that we on the understanding of democracy, but democracy constructed with the closed-ended question, where we do not use ChatGPT, and where individuals have to pick up some items that are proposed to them, and if they are wrong, we assume that they do not understand democracy, but if they are correct, the answer are correct, then they understand democracy. So here it's not based upon ChatGPT. It's another way of approaching the problem, but it's the only robustness check, and we avoid replicating with ChatGPT. So this is, I think that I am running out of time. So I would like what I am going to do is to regress the internet on my variable of interest, understanding democracy, and I use the internet access to the internet, which is approach with those two questions. How, at the individual level, therefore, how often do you get news from the following sources? Internet, how often do you get news from the following sources? Social media, such as Facebook or Twitter. So either people do get access to information through the internet if they use it a few times a week or every day, and otherwise no, they do not access the information through online information. So we have quite significant heterogeneity across African countries. And so I will not explain you how we constructed our experimental variable, but it's described in details in the paper. And I would like to look with you at the result, the main result, which is the impact of in two steps from the internet use to understanding democracy. So we first observe that the instrument is strong if you, by looking at the first stage of this regression, internet use is positively correlated with 3G coverage interacted with lighting density at the district level, and the F statistic is very high in all cases, which confirms the validity of our instrument. Therefore, and second, and the most important result here is, which is our key finding, is that the coefficient of interest is negative and significant, but only for democratic countries in Africa. We will, the next regressions in the paper explore it further by looking at how internet affects perceptions of free expression, corruption, the fairness of elections. But at this very stage, the evidence suggests that internet exposure in the absence of regulation provides individuals with information that reduces their basic understanding of democracy. We also, it's, I think, also interesting to note that simple wireless results point in the opposite direction. So which means that with wireless, internet exposure turns out positively correlated with understanding of democracy, which suggests that much of the existing literature based on simple correlations may lead to misleading conclusions. And it's therefore very important to control for the different biases that I mentioned previously. So in the following slides, I investigate three possible mechanisms behind this weakening of democratic understanding: the effect of internet on perceptions of free expression, electoral fairness, and corruption. I have no time to comment on them, but what I would like is to maybe I have. Yeah, what I would like is to draw the main conclusions from this analysis, from this paper. Our contribution has several dimensions. First, we attempt, and I hope successfully, to grasp, to propose to grasp the understanding of democracy, analyzing open-ended responses to an Afrobarometer question and using ChatGPT. We propose a simple and quantitative way to compare those answers with the standard definition of democracy, which is borrowed by ChatGPT from its training database. Next, we investigate the impact of new media on this understanding within a sample of African countries, both democracies, and we distinguish democracies from non-democracies, which reveals a negative effects of the internet on understanding as well as on perception of various political outcomes. Negative effect, but most of the time only for democratic settings, not countries, not for non-democratic environments. So I think those results are sufficient to raise the alarm and prompt a policy response, because because of course this distortion in the perception of what is really a democracy, how it functions, and the difference between other aspects of a society. So I think it's key to be able to choose between the different systems. And let me go a little bit further. Here we try to go a bit further and relate, on the one hand, the understanding of democracy, and on the other, the preference for democracy, the satisfaction with democracy, which make further implications emerge. Simple or less, so they should be interpreted with caution. We don't have any instrumental strategy here, identification strategy, but the relationship is potentially circular. Individuals who better understand democracy are also more likely to prefer it as a political system and to report higher satisfaction. But still, in democratic regimes, what we see here, we find a solid understanding of democracy is indeed associated with both stronger support for and greater satisfaction with the system. And I think this conclusion is key, it is crucial. If internet reduces democratic understanding by providing individuals with, and this is very widely documented in the literature, with unchecked information, with filtering what each person sees, polarizing opinions, this is very well studied and documented. Then public intervention become necessary. Regulation is needed to ensure neutrality in the production and distribution of information and to protect the foundations of democratic life. So it's thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation, also quite thought-provoking. Because also someone asked for the slides in the chat, but the paper is also available as a GLO discussion paper. So I think that
I will. The paper which is actually now a working paper needs some revision, but the working version is very close to what I presented today.
Yeah. Very nice.
Thank you. Very nice paper.
Thank you very much for your attention and
thank you very much to all for being here today. And yeah, well, I wish you a good afternoon.